Imagine endless desert plains stretching for many kilometers, where boundless sand dunes extend to the very horizon, resembling the waves of a vast ocean, only instead of water, there is the fine sand under a bright sun, relentlessly scorching in the sky. In these marble fields dwells an ancient land, filled with history and legends, and now, before you, unfolds a scene from an epic. The 25th century BC, that is, a distant 525 years before our era. The desert, which is most often associated with harsh trials and brutal conditions, now gleams under the blazing sun, like the setting of a precious stone, and sparkles with a silvery shimmer, reflecting the bright sun of a high, boundless blue sky. A vast army, like a leaden wave, moves across these endless sands, persistent and confident. These are the Persian warriors, numbering more than 50,000 men, each embodying discipline, strength, and determination. Their neat ranks, flawlessly organized, march in perfectly synchronized order, like one impeccable machine where every soldier knows his role and purpose. Brass armor, carefully polished and shining in the sun, reflects light, making them a powerful and impressive sight, while bright canvas banners, symbols of authority and victory, flutter overhead, even in the gentlest breeze, meeting the stunning desert landscape. Horses and camels advance with confidence and grace, threatening to raise clouds of golden dust that, like magical fog, envelop the ascending figures and conceal the traces of their prolonged march. Riders, as one, are fearless and assured, their faces expressing readiness for any battle and any danger. For they know that their mission is vital and could determine the fate of an entire region. This imposing military formation is led by wise and experienced commanders, chosen by their own leaders, the most trusted and loyal companions appointed by the ambitious Persian king, a man named Cambyses, son of the great leader, Cyrus the Great. This ruler, conqueror, and statesman inherited the throne not only in power, but also dreamed of expanding his empire's borders, strengthening his authority, and subjugating new lands. When Cambyses conquered Egypt, he sought to solidify his position and expand control, capturing one of the most significant and wealthy states of the region. The so-called Sacred Oracle of Ammon, an ancient and mysterious city hidden deep within the remote Siwa oasis, like a treasured island in the heart of the desert. Egypt, a land of rich cultural traditions, historical monuments, and incomparable treasures, was thus highly coveted, desirable, and politically important. Cambyses remained in Egypt, entrusting his trusted commanders with the task of ensuring the success of the conquests and maintaining control over this land, while he himself tended to his affairs in the capital, continuing to rule and strengthen his power. But deep within these desolate expanses, beneath the cover of fluffy sands and scorching winds, an unexpected and mysterious event unfolds. Despite the strength, preparation, and size of the army, which seems invincible, something inexplicable occurs. All of this enormous army, with its weapons, equipment, wagons, men, and animals, suddenly disappears without a trace. As if dissolving into the very void, not a single soldier returns home. No scouts or officers bring news of the fate of these warriors. The disappearance, which seems impossible, appears to defy logic and the laws of nature itself. For centuries, researchers, historians, and archaeologists have tried to uncover this mystery, searching for remains, traces of encampments, fragments of weapons, or other artifacts that might shed light on the reasons for the disappearance of such a numerous and mighty army. Yet, despite all efforts, no evidence has ever been found. It's as if the desert sands have swallowed not only the physical presence of the troops, but also all memory of them. It is as if nature itself, in this case the harsh Egyptian and Sivan deserts, decided to keep its secret forever, eternally concealing the mystery of the disappearance of this formidable force. So remains an incredible puzzle, unsolvable and shrouded in mystery. How could it have happened that an entire army, more than 30,000 people, vanished without a trace, leaving no clues? Why did this tragedy fade so quickly and completely, even though most military operations in history typically leave behind some signs? Broken weapons, charred campfires, shattered craft tools. Is the cause hidden in the unbelievable conditions of the desert, which apparently could completely destroy even the strongest of armies? Or did something else happen, something concealed in the endless, silent sands that ultimately made the disappearance of such an impressive force possible? Let us try together to delve into this fascinating and mysterious chapter of history to learn more about the ancient secrets that continue to intrigue and perplex scholars. Prepare yourself for an incredible journey where every detail, every inconsistency raises more questions and is hidden behind a curtain of time, concealed from prying eyes. Visual materials, photographs, illustrations, and excavations that can complement your perception will add context and help you vividly imagine what transpired in that distant era. However, even without them, you will be able to understand how mysterious and astonishing this story is. It all began around 530 BC, when a figure, surrounded by ambitions and aspirations to expand his empire, ascended the throne as the heir of a great empire. Son of Cyrus the Great, this ruler, known as Cambyses Taro, was not satisfied merely with what he inherited. Part 3 of 49. He desired more, and his eyes envisioned a goal, not merely to preserve his hereditary power, but to seize even more lands, strengthen his throne, and expand his empire to unimaginable sizes. He was intrigued by the mighty and ancient kingdom of Egypt, renowned for its rich treasures, rich cultural traditions, and historical significance, making it an attractive target for conquest and claims. In the 6th century BC, precisely in 520 BC, events began to unfold with speed and decisiveness. At that time, the powerful Persian king Cambyses, immediately after taking power, without hesitation or wavering, set out to conquer Egypt. Sending his well-trained army to the borders, he launched an impressive campaign aimed at subjugating the great Nile Valley, land rich in history, wonders, and ancient culture. Despite evident bravery and determination, Egyptian resistance grew weaker each day under the mighty onslaught of experienced and organized Persian soldiers. Their tactics, discipline, and martial skill proved too strong for the armies of the Egyptian pharaohs, fighting to preserve their independence. In a matter of weeks, Cambyses achieved a final victory, and having established control over the territory, he solemnly crowned himself pharaoh. This move signified that he became the ruler of the vast lands of the Nile Valley, uniting the ancient land and new territories under his command. Undoubtedly, this was an impressive feat, grand and symbolic for the time. The conquest of Egypt confirmed Cambyses' strength and resolve as a ruler. But his ambitions did not end there. He was not content with merely ruling Egypt. His aspirations were global. He dreamed of establishing his unchallenged and invincible authority over the entire known world, encompassing all civilizations he knew. During this period, he began to pay special attention to one seemingly little-known and highly mysterious site, hidden deep within the western Egyptian desert. A place that represented not just a geographical point, but also a symbol of mystical power. This was the Oracle of Amun, located in the Siwa Oasis. The oasis was surrounded by lush palms, and its landscape consisted of endless seas of yellow and orange sand that changed with each season, creating a unique, natural portrait. In this unremarkable but very important location was situated one of the most revered sanctuaries of the ancient world, the Oracle. Its wisdom and prophecies attracted many rulers from Egypt and other lands, who believed it to be the voice of the gods capable of guiding their destinies and providing answers to the most vital questions. Great kings, pharaohs, and monarchs undertook long and arduous journeys, overcoming obstacles both natural and human-made to seek advice, confirmation, or warnings from the oracle. The priests serving at the oracle interpreted various signs, dreams, omens, and words to help the rulers make important decisions and strengthen their legitimacy in the eyes of the people and the gods. However, for Cambyses, this oracle became not just an object of religious rituals, but also both a threat and an opportunity. After he conquered Egypt and proclaimed himself its pharaoh, he faced constant distrust from the local inhabitants, who questioned his legitimacy, his rights, and the authority of his rule. The awareness that any boundary of his power could be broken if opinions about the oracle changed was a crucial factor for Cambyses. If the oracle had turned against him or refused to confirm his authority, the legitimacy of his reign could have collapsed, undermined by ancient beliefs and traditions. On the other hand, if he could subjugate or neutralize the oracle, that would mean virtually eliminating the last instance of doubt and resistance, thus strengthening his rule. In this context, the oracle ceased to be just a religious or mystical object. It became a symbol of power, law, and might, holding a decisive role in the legality and stability of his government. But why risk so much for this, knowing all the dangers associated with such a step? For Cambyses, the oracle in the Siwa oasis became not only a mysterious temple hidden among the sands, but also a key element through which he could secure complete trust and support, both from the people and the gods. This object, as a powerful symbol of divine authority, could serve as the final lever in his pursuit to consolidate his undeniable power in this ancient and mysterious land. To carry out this bold and decisive plan, he assembled a massive army, a force composed of tens of thousands of Persian soldiers, the best of the best, prepared not only to overcome enemies and battlefield challenges, but also the dangerous conditions characteristic of this part of the world. He chose this type of warriors because he understood that without their resolve and resilience, it would be impossible to overcome all the difficulties of the upcoming task. To achieve his goal, he also invited experienced Egyptian guides, veterans with extensive knowledge of the complex patterns and routes crossing dozens of kilometers of endless sands. These people knew how to maintain a delicate balance between safety and danger in the constantly shifting dunes, navigating paths known only to a select few. The expedition was no accident. It represented a well-organized, carefully planned operation designed to endure harsh trials and overcome all traps of the ruthless desert. Imagine this vast host, thousands of soldiers accompanied by camels, tropical and working animals, and caravans with food and water. Together they set out across the boundless, hopeless desert, trusting in their knowledge, persistence, and unity. Every day became an increasingly arduous test for both people and animals, as the ruthless heat, like the fiery breath of hell, bore down upon them, while quicksand and relentless exhaustion actively tested their endurance and resilience. Despite these hardships, they pressed forward, understanding that their mission was of great importance. An attempt to gain control over a mysterious and powerful oracle that, according to its significance, could alter the fate of the entire world. Under the scorching, relentless sun, its bright light mercilessly falls from a cloudless sky, while the surrounding environment seems to burn and whine within the blazing sands of the endless and merciless desert. Among this astonishing and almost unbearably harsh landscape, people, armies led by strong faith and unwavering determination to complete their mission, move and continue on their journey, regardless of everything. During the hottest hours of the day, as the blazing sun battles against them with fury and a bright light reflected from metal armor. Soldiers often feel their weapons and gear heating up like a hot plate, blurring their vision and making the heat unbearable. Yet, despite such scorching heat and the brightness of the sun's rays, they do not stop. Their faith in victory and hope for success allow them to withstand even the most terrible conditions. Steadily moving forward, they are guided by a firm conviction in their choice, a belief in their strength, and in the righteousness of their mission. When the sun dips below the horizon and night falls, it becomes a time of cold and darkness. During this period, their fatigue, accumulated over long days of travel, only intensifies. The cold of the night, burning and piercing, acts as a vivid reminder of the environment's harshness, further exhausting them. The desert, this relentless and inhospitable land, has witnessed countless tragedies over the centuries of its existence. This infinitely severe terrain has claimed numerous human hearts and bodies, taking hundreds of lives, leaving only memories and legends in its wake. Still, despite all the dangers, the campus army confidently moves forward, as if driven solely by a belief in its own power and the support of mighty Egyptian guides, whose skill and knowledge of the terrain granted them additional resilience and confidence. But over time, as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, worry and anxious anticipation began to seize the leadership and those remaining at home in Egypt. In their camps, anxiety gradually grew because no news arrived. They remained entirely in the dark about the fate of their comrades. Nothing indicated how the expedition was progressing. Not a single scout sent ahead returned to give even the slightest report on the situation or progress in the desert. Not a single messenger sent with news reached its destination. This army was so disciplined, organized, and experienced, so accustomed to carrying out its missions and interacting, that it seemed almost impossible for it to vanish. Yet, on the horizon, there were no signs of the presence of this 1.5 million soldiers, nor their equipment. No indications of camps, broken tents, fires, or tracks. An extraordinary silence reigned around, as if emphasizing the complete disappearance of the army. No signal fires, no smoke, no sound of wheels or voices. Everything seemed as if wiped out by an invisible hand. Time passed, and it became clear something inexplicable had happened, something that science and reason could not explain. The mighty Persian army, which had fulfilled the strategic expectations of the king and was sent to reinforce his power in Egypt, had seemingly vanished. It disappeared as mysteriously and completely as it had appeared, as if dissolved into the bottomless sands, which it had struggled to conquer. In the end, its disappearance became a terrifying and eerie mystery, shrouded in darkness and secrecy. Those soldiers who once stood proudly under waving banners, the horses and camels laden with provisions and gear, and the experienced guides who knew nearly every trail and route through the endless desert. All of them vanished without a trace. They left neither corpses nor remains, nor any signs indicating that events had ever taken place here. What happened to the Cambyses army, which disappeared forever under the boundless sands? Could a natural phenomenon, a powerful force of nature capable of complete destruction, have been the cause? Or is there some mysterious, invisible force lurking beneath the dunes? A silent guardian who took them into the unknown? The earliest and most widely known account of this army's disappearance comes from the ancient Greek historian Herodotus. He's often called the father of history for laying the foundations of historical science and for being the first to record many past events. It was Herodotus, approximately 75 years after these events, who provided a detailed description of the vivid yet dramatic scene that unfolded in the desert. According to him, the Persian army suddenly and unexpectedly faced a mighty sandstorm that arose directly on the horizon, as if challenging nature itself. Herodotus described this storm with astonishing accuracy, comparing it to a giant wave rising abruptly from the sea of sand and rushing straight toward the advancing soldiers, covering them entirely, as if an invisible supernatural carpet. He claimed that the entire army, soldiers, their faithful horses, camels, and all heavy equipment, disappeared in an instant, as if swallowed by an abyss that devoured everything: bodies, harnesses, and even the last spark of life remaining in their hearts. This story, truly vivid and captivating, capturing the imaginations of many generations, quickly gained popularity and became part of legendary tales about the desert. Part 7 of 49. Her vivid images and mysterious details captivated both historians and adventurers. Despite the convincing and dramatic account given by Herodotus, questions and doubts remain within the scientific community. As practice shows, even the most vivid and compelling legends eventually require verification, evidence verification, and new testimony. Could a single raging sandstorm, no matter how powerful and mighty, have completely destroyed an army of 50,000 men, leaving no trace, no remains, not even a fragment of bone? This question has long troubled researchers and historians, since desert sands indeed possess immense power and the ability to transform the landscape. They can cover entire regions, conceal ancient cities, and turn the temporary traces of events into unresolved mysteries. However, despite the formidable force of natural phenomena, many experts are quite skeptical about explaining the complete disappearance of an entire army solely through natural causes. They believe that such a scale of disappearance requires more complex and multifaceted explanations than just a destructive natural event. Nevertheless, the story told by Herodotus continues to hold a special place in archaeology and historical science, remaining the most famous and widespread testimony of a buried secret. This narrative is particularly impressive due to its vividness and detailed portrayal of ancient times. It captures precisely how events associated with the mysterious army's disappearance were described in antiquity. It presents a convincing and colorful account, describing natural cataclysms, natural disasters, and miraculous vanishings. At the same time, however, this narrative remains only a part of a larger picture, as it does not provide a comprehensive explanation, leaving many gaps that invite interdisciplinary debates. As a result, researchers and historians are forced to independently unravel the intricate mysteries left by the ages. The question of whether a massive army could have been wiped out by a natural disaster remains unanswered. Can a natural catastrophe, even such a powerful one as a sandstorm, completely wipe out an entire military force and leave behind only the indifferent sands of the desert? Or is there more behind Herodotus's account of the army's total disappearance, something hidden within the mystery that requires more careful and thorough investigation? Perhaps deep within this ancient story lie undisclosed secrets, or something that patiently awaits its discovery, hidden beneath the endless sands of the desert and skillfully masking its traces. For decades, specialists, archaeologists, and historians have been troubled and captivated by the mystery surrounding the fate of the vanished Camby's army. It is believed that the elusive and lifeless sands of the Egyptian desert still may hold the keys to a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. Researchers have often pondered how many possibilities are hidden within the depths of desert strata that have kept their secrets and evidence of the past for centuries. An especially vivid example of this is a study conducted in the mid-2nd century AD, when two Italian archaeologists, a brother and sister, Angelo and Alfredo Costelloni, decided to focus their efforts around the Siwa oasis, which, according to legend, was the site of a vanished famous army. Embarking on this risky and all-important investigation, they prepared thoroughly and began excavations under the scorching sun amid endless sand dunes and rocky formations. Their goal was to finally find, among the ruins and sands, clues that would confirm or deny the existence of the ill-fated army. During long and meticulous work carried out in extreme heat and with a constant sense of uncertainty, they made highly interesting discoveries that immediately attracted great attention from the scientific community. The researchers made a truly remarkable find. They uncovered numerous fragments of ancient weapons and jewelry crafted in a characteristic Persian style, which appeared to be clear evidence of a clash involving ancient armies associated with the era of Cambyses. Among the sands, various items such as weaponry, ornaments, and human bones were found, indicating the scale and tragedy of the events. Initially, all these findings seemed to be a genuine breakthrough in the search for the true story. The weapons, jewelry, and bones most closely matched the style and period associated with Persian warriors, supporting the theory of an army presence there. This discovery appeared to be a significant and valuable contribution for historians, as it seemed that, after nearly 2,500 years, the mystery might finally be unraveled and understood. However, despite the promising initial results, further research revealed many doubts and questions. Archaeologists undertook more rigorous and comprehensive testing of the bones and artifacts to confirm or refute the initial assumptions. The use of radiocarbon dating and other modern scientific methods yielded an unexpected result. Instead of dating the items to the Cambyses era, around 525 BC, the tests indicated that the artifacts belonged to a much later period, nearly Roman times, approximately 5 centuries after the presumed tragedy. This shocking discovery was a serious disappointment for the researchers, cooling their initial enthusiasm and casting doubt on all the previously obtained one-sided information. Nevertheless, seeking to understand the information received and to grasp what truly happened, the archaeologists returned once again to the beginning of their investigations. Despite their setbacks and disappointments, they refused to lose hope of finding substantial evidence that could shed light on the fate of the lost army and solve this ancient mystery. In the coming decades, research methods were further enhanced and the most advanced technologies were employed. Starting from the early 2000s, satellite systems provided by organizations such as Nazca and other space agencies began regularly transmitting high-quality images of the barren and lifeless areas of the western Egyptian desert to researchers. These aerial and satellite observations enabled a detailed and accurate view of the desert landscapes, potential anomalies, and locations that might conceal traces of long-extinct events and civilizations. It is worth noting that these studies and expeditions aimed at unraveling this enigmatic and still not fully understood history allowed scientists to approach the region comprehensively from above, giving them a unique opportunity to observe the terrain with exceptional precision and breadth. Thanks to such aerial or satellite imagery, researchers obtained crucial information about the relief and features of the terrain, opening new horizons for further scientific hypotheses and conjectures. In several expeditions, modern ground-penetrating radar technology was employed, a sophisticated method based on electromagnetic waves that enables the detection of hidden underground objects and structures, which remain invisible to traditional archaeological excavation techniques. This technology allowed for the discovery of metal objects, weapons, remnants of structures, burial pits, and other concealed caches that Muslim or ancient civilizations might have hidden from outsiders, as well as from the effects of time and natural elements. International teams voluntarily united to survey a wide range of sites around Siba. This mythical region steeped in ancient history and mysteries. Their task was not only to identify evidence of military activity, but also to find even the smallest traces of the army's presence. Metallic objects, buried weapons, altered landscapes that could indicate the location of structures or troop movements. At the end of the 20th and the beginning of the 21st century, in 2009, a large-scale expedition led by Egyptian archaeologist Zeha Havas, sponsored by the world's leading research organization, the so-called National Geographic Society, embarked on a perilous journey across what is known as the Great Monumental Cemetery, an extensive area called the Sandy Sea. This vast expanse consists of endless desert dunes stretching between the ancient capital and the main part of Egypt, Siva, and the Nile Valley. The place is not just a desert. It is dangerous because of its unpredictability and treacherous terrain, which conceals a complex network of sand dunes, quicksands, and sudden dust storms, making it nearly impassable even for seasoned explorers. The team of scientists meticulously planned their routes, creating detailed maps of possible paths that an army might have taken, utilizing modern tools such as high-resolution satellite imagery, ground radar data, and archaeological excavations. They conducted thorough investigations to detect even the slightest signs. In other words, they employed all available methods in their search for any evidence of the historical secret. However, surprisingly, and somewhat wearisomely, even with the most detailed and modern techniques, the experts were completely unsuccessful. No bones of soldiers long gone in the past, no remains of armor, no equipment they might have possessed were found. The absence of obvious traces, despite extensive and comprehensive research, led to a complex situation for historians and archaeologists. The question of the fate of the vanished Cambus army remains open. Could the harsh conditions of the merciless desert have erased all traces left by ancient battles? Or are the reasons for their disappearance hidden beneath layers of sand, inaccessible to current search methods? Or perhaps the true answers still lie beneath the shifting sands, awaiting the right moment or the emergence of new technologies that might shed light on this mystery in the future. Over the years, many different theories have emerged, each attempting to explain the fate of the so-called Lost Army, which, according to legends, disappeared in such harsh and ruthless conditions. All these hypotheses have their supporters, as each offers its own version of the events explaining the disappearance. One of the most widespread and popular theories is the betrayal hypothesis. It is assumed that Egyptian guides, whom Cambus relied on to navigate the desert, might have maliciously led his troops into dangerous areas or dead-end situations, thus committing an act of covert treason or rebellion. During the times of Alexander the Great's ancient campaigns, there are documented cases where local guides, leading armies into ambushes or through territories inhabited by unfriendly tribes, sometimes deliberately created dangerous obstacles to impede progress. And these incidents have been recorded in history. This fact undoubtedly lends some probability to the hypothesis of intentional treachery on the part of those meant to assist the army. Perhaps they deliberately led troops into traps or hazardous situations with no escape, ultimately resulting in complete loss and disappearance. The general idea of betrayal does not seem unfounded, as human history offers numerous examples where local guides or allies betrayed their partners during campaigns or wars, motivated by self-interest or fears. Another popular theory involves natural hazards, which are often overlooked when discussing ancient military campaigns. It is assumed that King Cambyses' army may have encountered a natural trap. For instance, quicksand, which is common in parts of the western Egyptian desert. These sands are treacherous and unpredictable. Their shifting consistency can swallow even well-prepared individuals, leaving behind only fading traces. In any case, in regions where quicksand exists, many historical chronicles recount that entire groups of travelers, trade caravans, and even small military detachments could simply disappear, seemingly dissolving into and being absorbed by the landscape, which could quickly conceal their existence. Although these natural dangers have been extensively studied and well documented, no one can definitively say whether they were the actual cause of the army's disappearance. The third popular explanation involves specially organized ambushes set by local tribes or nomadic groups, who knew every crevice and trail in the surrounding terrain better than anyone else. These tribes and nomads, with their superior knowledge of the landscape and their stealth, could stage sudden attacks, set traps, or scout caravans for plunder. They often exploited their familiarity with the terrain to survive and to intimidate or capture foreigners, but gave them a chance to escape or resist, since in such conditions any attempt to flee could lead to disaster. It is possible that the armies that vanished in the desert expanses fell prey to unexpected strikes and attacks by enemies, who then meticulously eliminated all evidence to prevent their plans from being uncovered. Although such tactics seem harsh, they have frequently appeared in the history of military actions. One can cite the example of the Roman general Crassus, who lost thousands of his soldiers in one of his unsuccessful battles in South Asia during a terrible, bloody ambush prepared by the Parthians in arid regions a year before the beginning of our era. These events demonstrate that such tactics, carefully planned ambushes, were not uncommon and occurred quite frequently throughout different stages of history and in various parts of the world. At the same time, there is a simpler, yet no less convincing explanation for the disappearance of such armies. Often, the cause lies in navigation and orientation errors. In the harsh desert conditions, with endless, lifeless dunes and scorching heat, even the most prepared travelers, guides, and soldiers could easily become lost. History knows many cases where entire armies got lost in the endless, barren expanses of the desert, and massive caravans traveling along trade routes lost their way and wandered aimlessly until they succumbed to hunger, thirst, and exhaustion. For example, Alexander the Great's army once suffered significant losses precisely due to navigation mistakes in unknown and dangerous desert frontiers. This fact serves as a vivid proof of how easily even well-trained and experienced military units can go astray and lose their way under such conditions. However, despite such explanations and historical examples, no concrete evidence has yet been found that could definitively confirm the reason for the disappearance of Cambyses' army. To date, neither remains of the fallen soldiers, nor weapons nor equipment has been discovered, which greatly complicates efforts to understand the fate of this ancient army. It can be assumed that the true cause lies in a simple yet grim reality: the mysterious loss without a trace in the vast sandy expanses, where secrets perhaps still remain hidden, undiscovered by science or historians. Perhaps some clues still await their moment, concealed beneath shifting sands, and one day they will be found, revealing to us the terrible and mysterious truth about the fate of the long-vanished army. Until then, its enigma remains a mystery of the ages, lurking within the moving sands of Egypt and still awaiting discovery. High in the heart of the Himalayan mountains, in their most remote and inaccessible peaks, lies a small but very mysterious lake called Rubkund. Surrounded by sharp ridges and covered with a thin layer of ice that does not melt even in warm seasons, this body of water holds a disturbing secret that has stirred the minds of explorers and curious naturalists for centuries. Imagine how easy it must be to behave on the cold, almost lifeless peaks, where only the frozen sky and boundless white silence surround you. There, on the highest and most severe horizon, you move guided by a faint, barely visible light of dawn, spreading a gentle, sparse glow across the frosty surface. As the boat neared the shore, a keen eye could notice something remarkable. Beneath the transparent layer of ice were hidden bones, scattered around. Human skulls, skeletons remaining from those who once perished here, ruthlessly and suddenly. But these remains were not the result of a single catastrophe. They belong to people who died in different historical eras, sometimes separated by hundreds or even thousands of years. How these bodies ended up in this isolated place, and why the lake became their grave, remains a mystery for all investigators. It seems as if nature itself, shrouded in fog, was drawn to these bodies, keeping them to preserve them for future generations, to capture their appearance and history. Is it a miracle? A lake that for centuries attracts the bodies of those who journeyed into eternity and has preserved them through the centuries. The first description of this mysterious body of water was made by a forester in 1942, and since then it has become the subject of numerous studies. Today it is called the Lake of Skeletons because the secret hidden in its depths continues to astonish the minds of scientists, historians, and naturalists. The more they study this place, the more astonishing and incredible its aspects become. Recent genetic studies show that most victims of this place came from various parts of the world. Some were from South Asia, others from distant Mediterranean countries, stretching across thousands of kilometers. Despite such extensive and meticulous research into this remarkable and mystical lake, there remains one question to which no definitive answer has yet been found. What exactly led these people here, to this isolated, hostile, and impenetrable place where even time seems to have stopped? Why did they come here, become trapped in this mysterious fissure of time and space? And what motivated their decision to embark on such a dangerous journey, leaving behind everything familiar, everything known and close? These mysteries remain unresolved to this day, continuing to stir the minds of scientists, researchers, and simply curious people eager to uncover the hidden facets of human destiny and the nature of this mysterious place, which bears the name Lake Rubkunt. Why then has no one who once found themselves here ever returned? This question has long intrigued investigators and those who have themselves encountered the mysteries of this region. Tonight, we will delve into one of the most indomitable and mysterious secrets, Lake Rubkunt. During this captivating discussion, we will share what has been discovered through modern scientific research, as well as the theories that attempt to explain the strange phenomena and anomalies surrounding this secluded corner of mountain peaks. Allow me to invite you on an incredible journey to the mysterious Lake Rubkunt, nestled high in the harsh and silent Himalayas. This place, covered by snow-capped peaks and impenetrable silence, holds stories that evoke both awe and unease, beyond simple understanding. Lake Rubkunt occupies a special place among mountain attractions. Its elevation exceeds 16,000 feet above sea level, and the harsh landscape surrounding it makes it one of the most remote and inaccessible locations on the planet. Located in the Uttarakhand region, this magnificent yet extremely dangerous place is hidden among sharp rocks and ice-covered trails, fractured and frozen forever. Despite its modest size, only 40 meters wide and no more than 10 feet deep, getting to this lake is not as easy as it initially appears. The path to it winds through the most difficult trails, requiring not only physical endurance, but also a well-prepared spirit. Along the route are dense forests rich with local flora, alpine meadows where moss and wildflowers grow, and steep, rocky slopes that must be climbed on all fours. During the winter months, the lake is usually covered with a thick layer of ice, its surface freezing over and becoming a motionless mirror that hides its secrets. Only during the brief warmth of the season, June, July, and August, does the ice gradually melt, revealing a mysterious depth that was kept secret for centuries. Despite its modest area, the environment surrounding Lake Rubkunt possesses a unique singularity. The air here is clear and cool, and the harsh climatic conditions make survival in this place extremely difficult. Gusts of wind penetrating every crack of the skin, sudden storms changing weather within minutes, all create a dangerous yet alluring atmosphere. The vegetation in this zone consists mainly of alpine grasses that can grow in low oxygen and freezing conditions. Only the most hardy species survive among the small shrubs and wildflowers, those adapted to the severe Himalayan environment. The richest and most diverse wildlife is limited. In this region, rare and specialized species such as snow leopards, Himalayan deer, barrel, blue sheep, and numerous high-altitude birds capable of enduring extreme temperatures and low oxygen levels reside. As a result of these harsh climatic conditions and limited food sources, these species have become tiny parts of an ecosystem that remains largely inaccessible to most people. These natural features explain why the local population, especially shepherds, have historically treated the lake and its surrounding territory with particular caution and reverence. With centuries of knowledge, they understood that this is a sacred yet dangerous place, avoiding it and telling each other frightening legends and tales. Beyond the narrow circle of experts and local shepherds, this corner remained virtually unknown to the wider world, guarding its secrets. However, everything changed in 1942 when Lake Roucount first drew serious attention. Its discovery is linked to the name Harikishan Madhwal, a British ranger who served with the colonial authorities and was assigned to patrol these remote mountain slopes. During one of his patrols, he stumbled upon an extraordinary find that forever altered the understanding of this region. Deep in the mountains, in the Spetsos area, Madhwal mapped the terrain, carefully studying the surrounding peaks and trails. But it was near the shore of one of the unremarkable, almost invisible lakes that he encountered what caused him a profound shock. Among the rocky edge and water, he noticed pale silhouettes that strangely reflected in the sunlight. As he approached closer, he felt a chilling cold run through his body. These were human remains, a head, a skull. Boned fragments of the chest and limbs, and jaws lay among the stones and icy waves, blown by the wind and half submerged in the freezing water. Initially, it seemed to be evidence of a recent tragedy, wreckage of a ship or airplane stranded in these heights, or perhaps the tragic fate of travelers who perished during a harsh night storm that suddenly engulfed this area. It was possible that pilgrims lost in the mountains had landed here, or adventurers seeking thrill who found themselves in a deadly situation. However, when Madhwal examined the remains more closely, it turned out they had been in that place for quite a long time. The skulls and bones showed signs of decay, and their arrangement and condition indicated these were not recent deaths, but ancient, multi-year-old traces of tragedies. This discovery sparked in the researcher not only wonder, but also numerous hypotheses about what Lake Roucount concealed and why it was so dangerous. The bones resembled signs of broken and weathered antiquity. They were scattered around the perimeter, as if to remind that many harsh winters had passed here, experienced in the Himalayas. Their faded, weathered fragments testified to a long, arduous history hidden within these severe regions. After this shocking revelation, the remains attracted the attention of investigators, and soon a team headed towards that remote and little-lit lake to understand its true nature and unravel the secrets lurking in its depths. But what they found proved to be far more astonishing and complex than anyone could have imagined. Instead of a small pile of skeletons, the scientists encountered a vast scene. Among the flowing waters, they saw hundreds of human figures scattered along the shore and beneath the transparent surface, which appeared innocent and harmless. These human remains stretched along the entire shoreline, creating scenes that served as reminders of an unknown tragedy. The cemetery, composed of bones, included not only adult men and women, but also children, making the situation especially tragic. All these people apparently died suddenly, and the reasons for their deaths were so mysterious that even experienced scientists could not immediately determine what exactly had happened. It is astonishing that none of the deceased were found wearing clothes, weapons, or personal belongings, nothing that could help identify them, determine their origin, or even clarify the cause of their tragic end. As a result of this extraordinary and horrifying discovery, The lake, located in a remote mountainous area, was named the Lake of Skeletons, and this designated date became forever associated with it. News of this unusual place quickly spread around the world, capturing the minds and imaginations of people. Initially in the 1950s, it was mistakenly believed to be part of a legend, a place where ancient treasures were hidden, their secret caches having vanished over time. However, soon opinions shifted, and it became clear that this assumption was incorrect. For a long time, it was thought that Japanese soldiers who fought during World War II perished in Lake Rukun, or that it was the site of a tragic death of a group of travelers. But later, more thorough investigations showed that these theories were unsubstantiated, and the mystery of the lake only deepened. Even after numerous expeditions, archaeological excavations, and scientific research, the very nature of this place remains an unresolved enigma. So, who were all these people? Why did thousands of them end up in this remote, hard-to-reach, yet extremely cold and harsh environment? And most importantly, what caused their sudden deaths, which seemed entirely inexplicable? To try to shed light on these mysteries, one should look not only at modern scientific theories and hypotheses, but also at ancient legends, tales, and superstitions passed down within local communities over many generations living near the lake. These stories contain information and explanations that have developed over centuries and are firmly rooted in local folklore. Long before the advent of modern science and the first expeditions, the region's inhabitants had their own versions of the mysterious events linked to the lake. These legends were transmitted orally, deeply embedded in their culture and way of thinking. One of the oldest and most well-known legends tells of an ancient ruler named Justaval, whose story is still preserved in oral tradition. According to this legend, King Justaval embarked on a journey across the Himalayan peaks with his pregnant wife, accompanied by many servants, dancers, musicians, and warriors. Their goal was to reach a sacred site, the shrine of the goddess Nanda Devi, a revered deity in the region, believed to be the source of strength and blessing. King Justaval hoped to receive the goddess's blessing for his future child so that his kingdom would prosper and be protected from hardships and misfortunes. However, during the festivities and rituals associated with worshipping the goddess, an unforeseen incident occurred, which provoked her terrible wrath. According to legend, at the moment of celebration, a situation arose that ignited the goddess's anger, and the cause of this could lie either in human weakness or in an act of ignorance. Some residents speculate that it was due to excessive extravagance and neglect of the importance of humility, which, according to tradition, should have characterized their faith in the goddess. Others believe that the queen herself, driven by impulse and being in a position that was strictly forbidden in those distant times, broke the customs and traditions of the sacred place. Whatever truth may lie behind all these versions, the goddess felt deep insult and offense. In her anger, she immovably rained down blazing hailstones upon the sacred lands, which fell from the sky directly onto a handful of the king's attendants and his retinue. At that moment, near Lake Rukun, there were no trees or caves to shelter or protect from the destructive force of the goddess's fury. All around was open terrain, where tragedy unfolded uniformly and without any hope of salvation. Thus, this legendary story ended, serving as a reminder of how divine wrath and human recklessness can lead to tragedy, which remains in the people's memory as a reminder of the importance of respect and humility before supernatural powers. As a result, the fate of King Justaval, his queen, and everyone with them at that ill-fated moment was tragic. No one could escape the deadly consequences of the destructive hailstorm, and was forced to perish without finding salvation. Their bodies were struck by the fierce drops of celestial violence, and fate so decreed that both their lives and their entire journey ended in a single, fateful moment. However, the story of this king, his wife, and those around them is just one of many legends associated with the lake, called Rukun. This mysterious water body has attracted attention since ancient times with its mystical fame and quiet secret enveloping it, all of which contributes to a variety of legends and tales passed down through generations. For many centuries, people have associated this place with pilgrimages to the shrine of the goddess Nanda Devi, whose worship is linked to the deep spiritual and religious traditions of the local inhabitants. From generation to generation, young and old have made the long and arduous journey over steep mountain passes and winding paths leading high into the Himalayas to the sacred peak where her sanctuary was located. This path was considered not only a geographical, but also a spiritual challenge. Difficult and harsh, requiring full concentration, faith, and inner strength. Pilgrims trying to reach the sacred holy site often face the whims of nature. Sudden weather changes, strong winds, snowstorms, and avalanches. This difficult and dangerous route became in essence a true test of faith, strength, and character for everyone daring to undertake such a complex and risky journey. When pilgrims finally reached the holy place, it was believed that completing this long and arduous path brought divine blessings and protection, an amulet that would accompany them throughout their lives. However, not all who ventured into the mountains returned home alive and unscathed. Over time, rumors and legends spread along the mountain slopes about those who disappeared without a trace, about people who set out on the trail to the sacred site and never returned. Local residents observing this suggested that it was all connected to possible violations of ancient traditions, wrong conduct, straying from the righteous path, or showing disrespect to the sacred mountain. In their stories, there was the idea that divine punishment would not be delayed. It would come swiftly for disrespect or disobedience. It is said that around Lake Rupkund, the remains, bones of those who failed to return, are scattered. These legends gave rise to the belief that the scattered skeletal remains nearby belong specifically to those pilgrims who, perhaps accidentally or carelessly, broke sacred commandments, showed disrespect to the sacred site, or fell victim to divine wrath. Over time, this tradition strengthened and grew as the bones, combined with ancient superstitions, created a stern image of a place that must be both feared and respected. For the local people, the lake became a symbol not only of the danger hidden in unpredictable nature and higher powers, but also of the need to adhere to spiritual canons. Otherwise, calamity and the wrath of the gods could be attracted. This was not merely a series of myths or minor legends, but a serious and stern warning passed from mouth to mouth. For many years, numerous legends and stories shaped the image of this mysterious lake as something dangerous, beyond human understanding, and relentless in its wrath. These tales, in a sense, served as the main motivation for those who hesitated or doubted whether the area was truly perilous or perhaps it was worth approaching to uncover its secret. Many years passed, and these legends maintained their power, becoming part of the deep culture and folklore of the region. However, when modern scientists decided to conduct detailed studies of this mysterious corner, their views on Lake Rupkund changed dramatically. The research, which began in the 20th century, allowed for a scientific perspective on the phenomena and helped understand the true causes of the existing mysteries. At first, scientists believed that all the skeletons discovered there were victims of a single tragic incident, possibly related to a failure among pilgrims or an unexpected powerful blizzard that suddenly swept over the region. This explanation seemed logical and convincing, as such accidents frequently occurred in mountainous areas, and many victims died precisely in this manner, due to sudden natural disasters. However, over the course of several decades, this hypothesis lost its relevance as new scientific discoveries and more accurate explanations emerged. Recent research revealed something astonishing. According to data from the National Geographic Service, there could be between 500 and 800 skeletons in this lake, hundreds of human remains buried in the waters or lying on the bottom. Remarkably, this number likely vastly exceeds the actual count, as many remains are hidden beneath layered stone formations, buried under eroded or decaying sediments caused by natural processes or human intervention over many centuries. This suggests that there could be significantly more remains beneath the water's surface than initially apparent, indicating the scale of the tragedies that took place in this area. These findings paint a picture far larger than just one tragic fate. They point to a series of calamities that countless groups of travelers faced every year as they ventured into these mountains over many centuries. Every person, every expedition entering this dangerous region confronted the same deadly hazards that claimed their lives indiscriminately. It becomes a chain of tragedies linked to this remote, harsh, yet sacred corner of the world. Early 20th century investigations, conducted before modern analysis and DNA diagnostics existed, began to uncover the true causes of death for those who ended up here. Initial studies established that all the skeletons belonged to people of South Asian origin, most of whom had died around the 6th century AD. This gave rise to the theory that these individuals may have accidentally fallen through the lake's ice or struggled against natural forces, leading to their sudden death and disappearance without a trace. At the time, these explanations seemed convincing. Despite the passage of centuries and the mystery surrounding historical events, they offered at least some insight into this enigmatic place. However, as science progressed, it became clear that the situation was much more complex and intriguing. Modern research and the application of new analytical methods have revealed even deeper and more astonishing details about what happened during those centuries and who exactly perished here. The exchange of information and recent discoveries led scientists to conclude that the skeletons could belong to people who did not perish all at once or during a single tragic event, but over a long period, possibly spanning several centuries. This conclusion proved to be of great importance for understanding the entire history of this mysterious place. According to experts, approximately 500 human bones might be scattered across the bottom of this body of water, and some estimates suggest up to 800. Dating and analysis of the remains showed that most of them belonged to individuals who died in the 6th century AD, and that their cause of death could have been related to natural disasters, accidents, or even external influences. These skeletons tell us about countless tragedies, about people who, embarking on dangerous journeys through the mountains, had no idea what awaited them. The avenue of bones and the solemn silence of this place seem to emphasize the series of unexplained disappearances and deaths connected to this particular corner of the Himalayas. These findings serve as mysterious testimony to the multitude of calamities that have befallen travelers over the centuries, leaving behind only ghostly traces and faint secrets. The past of this place is a chronicle of numerous tragedies, ancient misfortunes, serving as a reminder that danger always lurks in these mountains. Every encounter with nature, every journey here was perilous and could end in tragedy. Yet, despite its formidable reputation, this corner has always attracted those seeking spiritual enlightenment or wishing to unravel the secrets of higher powers. For many centuries, this area remained shrouded in mystery. Its legends, myths, and tales closely intertwined, creating the impression that by revealing its secrets, Lake Rukbund also holds particles of ancient power protected for centuries. These stories, woven around the bones and the mystical beauty of the lake, made it a place both to fear and to respect. Recent studies gradually exposed images of the past connected with this enigmatic location, the Rukund Lake, situated in the heart of the mountain ranges. Initially, scientists believed that the remains found along its shores mostly belonged to people aged 18 to 35, and the remains of children discovered there provided some food for thought about the nature of the tragedy that fate had dealt these individuals. These findings undoubtedly created an initial impression of a mass catastrophe or a terrible tragedy that had occurred in the past, despite limited data that offered only a superficial understanding of the events. However, with the advancement of scientific technologies and the application of increasingly modern methods of analysis, such as radiocarbon dating and genetic research, these early impressions began to give way to a more complex and multifaceted picture. In the 20th century, in 2019, a group of specialists comprising geneticists, archaeologists, and historians from well-known and respected institutions such as Harvard University, the Indian Institute of Birbal Sakni, and genetics laboratories in Hyderabad, decided to revisit the mystery of Lake Rubkund. Their goal was to utilize the latest diagnostic and research methods to finally shed light on this ancient enigma. The combined efforts of these scientists focused on new excavations and analysis of collected samples, primarily bones of people whose age and origins had previously remained little understood. The hope was that thorough examination of the skeletal remains would enable them to determine who these people were and how they came to be in this remote and harsh mountainous region. However, the results exceeded all expectations and revealed an entirely different, even more complex and intriguing picture. It is worth noting that in-depth analysis of these bones uncovered something astonishing and completely unexpected. It turned out that Lake Rubkund in the past was the site of not just a single tragedy, but a series of accidents and conflicts that occurred here over more than a millennium ago. As part of this unique scientific project, 38 skeletons were carefully studied, confirming that these remains belong to individuals from various populations living in different eras. Among these findings was the revelation that the majority, namely 23 skeletons, had South Asian origins, indicating the existence of various migrations and movements of people in this region. However, what was especially surprising was that within this group, remains were found separated by centuries, some dating approximately to the 2nd century AD, while others approached the X century. These discoveries completely refuted previous assumptions that all the humanoid beings who perished or lived here belonged to a single tragic event or scenario associated with one local catastrophe. But the most astonishing revelation was that the analysis of 33 skeletons from a significantly later period, around the X century, showed clear genetic links to people living on the Greek island of Crete and in other parts of the Mediterranean. These data radically expanded our understanding of human migrations and interregional connections of that era. The scientists were absolutely astounded, as there had been no prior evidence of any links between this region and Crete, or other Greco-Roman territories. Additional genetic studies uncovered entirely new connections with peoples of Southeast Asia, making this mystery even more complex and tangled. Part 22 of 49. These findings raised some of the most important questions for specialists. How was it possible that such diverse groups of people, some coming from the southern and western parts of India, others from the Mediterranean, ended up in this remote, harsh, and adventurous mountain corner? Why was it specifically here, in this isolated, natural enclave, that their paths led them? And how is it that all of them found themselves here at the same time, facing a fate so tragic and seemingly destined? Despite significant efforts and technological advancements by scientists, it still remains a mystery why these various groups, each with distinct origins and histories, intersected in this place and ultimately perished or became intertwined with their destiny. In search of answers to these questions, researchers from Harvard University decided to collaborate with colleagues from India, combining resources and knowledge to conduct more extensive and in-depth excavations around Lake Rubkund. Experts from the Indian Institute of Birbal Sakni actively participated in this work, aiming to expand the scope of studied materials and uncover new evidence. Scientists also analyzed soil samples, organic residues, and other materials collected from the area surrounding the lake, hoping to find new clues in this region that could shed further light on the historical events that took place here many centuries before our time. Geneticists working in the region of Hyderabad carried out a very thorough analysis of DNA maps collected from around this mysterious lake. Thanks to these studies, it was established that the genetic makeup of the findings and samples indicates that the biodiversity of this water body includes elements from various parts of Asia and the Mediterranean. In other words, traces of human and organism migrations related to South Asia, the Mediterranean, and Southeast Asia are observable in the genetic material. These conclusions confirm that the history of this unique lake is intertwined with numerous cultural flows that pass through mountain and plain regions across different eras. Throughout the extensive research, several compelling theories emerged to explain the mysterious history of this site and the reasons behind the mass tragedies associated with it. The first widespread hypothesis suggests that Lake Rupkund, located in the heart of the Himalayan oases, served over many centuries as a center for religious and cult rituals. High in the mountains, there are numerous sacred sites worshipped by various deities, whether local protectors or global religious figures. Some experts believe that Lake Rupkund was among these sacred places, attracting many pilgrims from across the region and even beyond. These pilgrims, eager for spiritual harmony, often disregarded the dangers of the mountainous terrain and harsh climate, despite the risks to their lives. This spiritual calling could become more powerful than any obstacle, even if travelers were aware of the potential dangers, because their faith in divine forces and miraculous healings was more important than everyday hazards. As a result, such people voluntarily faced extreme situations to fulfill their religious obligations. Another widely accepted hypothesis suggests that Rupkund bore little resemblance to a simple sacred site and was more likely a point along complex ancient trade routes passing through the Himalayas. According to this theory, the lake was situated on the critical routes connecting India with China, Tibet, and Central Asian countries. In those times, caravans and nomadic groups traveled these trade routes, accompanied by camels, horses, and elephants transporting valuables, goods, and rare objects. It is possible that accidental deviations from main routes or forced detours due to inclement weather led some traders or travelers to the outskirts of traditional paths, near this mysterious lake. The logic is straightforward. They might have been seeking shelter from storms or sudden snowfalls, or simply trying to shorten their journey and accidentally found themselves in a dangerous area. Such unforeseen situations could have ended in tragedy, especially if travelers were unprepared for the severe conditions. Support for these assumptions also comes from the results of detailed trauma studies. Numerous bones and skeletal remains exhibit damages characteristic of sudden natural disasters. These injuries included severe fractures, crushed bones, and broken limbs, indicating that people were struck by powerful natural forces, hail, falling rocks, or avalanches during the events. Most of the damage was related to intense hail, leading scientists to conclude that harsh weather conditions were occurring in the region at the time of the victims' deaths. Although hail was the main cause, other injuries pointed to avalanches and treacherous falls from steep slopes, emphasizing how dangerous these mountain paths were. Sometimes, evidence suggested that victims could have fallen prey to sudden landslides or collapses, and in some cases, death resulted from disorientation or falling into an abyss. These findings confirmed the theory that the region experienced numerous tragedies, and no single event was isolated. Over centuries, the lake's history became filled with many accidents, leaving behind monuments of their demise. It is also possible that diseases played a role in the mortality. Travelers weakened by long journeys or forced to live in extreme conditions may have contracted infections, which spread rapidly due due to the difficult high-altitude environment and the lack of medical assistance. Despite numerous studies and findings, the mystery of this region remains unsolved. One of the most pressing questions continues to be the reason why this remote, seemingly magical place attracts people from all over the world. Why did it become a center of tragedies, drawing travelers from different continents despite obvious dangers? What drove them to risk their lives in pursuit of it? These questions remain unanswered. Initially, over many centuries, the primary cause of deaths along the lake's shores was believed to be destructive hail that ravaged everything living and destroyed the hopes and fates of hundreds of individuals seeking spiritual enlightenment or trade routes. For a long time, scientists and researchers proposed various hypotheses regarding the mysterious events that took place near the high-altitude Lake Rubkund. They relied on the nature of skull injuries found at the site, attempting to understand what could have caused such traumas. One of the most popular theories was that these injuries resulted from strikes by large hailstones, capable of causing significant harm to a person. According to this hypothesis, the destructive power of such hailstones could have reached considerable sizes, and they may not have been ordinary hail drops, but actual bricks or balls falling forcefully from the sky. One common assumption is that the deaths in this region could have been caused by hailstones roughly the size of a cricket ball, fairly large and heavy projectiles capable of inflicting serious injuries instantly. This idea also fit well with local folklore. Traditional legends passed down through generations describe legendary events involving hail striking people and animals. The story of King Jastavale and his retinue is particularly vivid. According to tales, they were suddenly struck by a fierce hailstorm, and a considerable number of figures were affected, leaving behind an unspoken mystery of their fate. Such legends create the impression that powerful hailstones were the cause of the tragedy that took place on the shores of this harsh and isolated place. However, despite the attractiveness and logical appeal of this theory, recent scientific research and analyses cast doubt on it. Scientists have not been able to fully confirm that natural phenomena such as large hailstorms could have caused such extensive consequences in the past. However, it cannot be completely ruled out that strong storm conditions, sometimes observed in the Himalayas, particularly during certain periods, could produce powerful hailstorms. Nonetheless, critics emphasize that for a single storm to cause mass casualties across different eras and among diverse social groups, such events would have to be extremely rare. In fact, existing historical records and oral traditions spread in other regions of the area rarely mention such large hailstorms accompanied by heavy civilian losses or numerous victims. All this casts further doubt on the definitive nature of the hypothesis involving natural cataclysms. Consequently, scientists have begun exploring alternative explanations that are more plausible and less contradictory to available evidence. The most convincing alternative is the theory that human fatalities are linked to cold conditions. The high geographical feature, the location of Lake Rupakund at a great altitude, creates an environment conducive to sudden temperature fluctuations, the appearance of unexpected snowstorms, icy rains, and strong winds. These natural phenomena make unprepared travelers vulnerable to rapid hypothermia. When a person finds themselves in such a harsh environment without warm clothing, shelter, or proper orientation skills, the chances of quickly losing body heat and falling into a dangerous state of hypothermia increase dramatically. Rapid frost, cold wind, and low temperatures can cause loss of sensation, disorientation, and sometimes complete inability to move within just a few minutes. As a result, a person can get lost, lose orientation, and, without reliable support, perish under the invisible but deadly force of the cold. It is no wonder that the remains, dated to the time of such tragedies, were scattered around the lake's shores, indicating a swift and brutal process of death. However, this hypothesis does not provide a definitive explanation of the mystery either, as the question remains: why did travelers from different eras, social classes, and cultural backgrounds choose this particular route, repeatedly facing similar levels of tragedy? Why did this harsh, isolated place become a death site for so many seemingly different individuals? The question remains open. Perhaps the reason lies in more complex historical or cultural features of the region. Another of the most intriguing and captivating hypotheses that drew the attention of scientists and enthusiasts of the area's mysteries concerns a recent discovery in the field of genetics. Based on the analysis of bones and remains found near the lake, it has been suggested that some of these skeletons may be linked to lost units of ancient scouts who accompanied Alexander the Great's army during his campaigns in the 3rd century BC. In 326 BC, after the army of the Great King reached northern India, his units began exploring and searching for new routes to expand the empire's borders. In these efforts, they sent small reconnaissance groups into remote and difficult-to-access Himalayan passes, hoping to find alternative trails and strengthen their positions. Some historians suggest that certain scouts, losing their bearings in the mountains, may have become trapped and perished near Lake Rupkund. Defeat and death would be understandable given the harsh natural conditions typical of that region and the difficulty of traversing high mountains. What is truly interesting is that some genetic analysis findings revealed the presence of markers characteristic of the Mediterranean and southern Europe, unexpectedly linked to the campaigns of Alexander the Great's ancient armies. These genetic traces weave a chain of clues connecting ancient events in the Himalayas with prominent historical figures and eras. This creates an image of a mysterious intersection of stories and cultures converging in this remote corner of the planet. Nevertheless, most scientists believe that this entire theory remains just a hypothesis, as no concrete archaeological discoveries or written sources currently exist to directly connect Alexander's troops or reconnaissance groups with this location. All this legend about ancient markers and connections is merely an intriguing hypothetical scenario requiring further study and evidence. Finally, no less compelling is the hypothesis concerning deliberate actions related to religious or spiritual rituals. Since Lake Rupkund is located near sacred pilgrimage routes and sites considered holy and mystical, some researchers tend to think that people who engaged in acts of spiritual or cultic self-sacrifice might have come here. Folklore from various cultures contains numerous instances where ritual deaths or sacrifices were part of complex belief systems aimed at receiving blessings, purifying oneself, or transitioning to another world. Due to its proximity to sacred routes, this area could have served as a site for special ceremonies, and some travelers possibly came here intentionally to perform such rituals. Although this explanation is difficult to verify with documentation, it presents an intriguing hypothesis that explores the spiritual and cultural aspects of the mysterious tragedy, beyond rational accounts of natural or historical factors. In conclusion, despite numerous theories, each has its strengths and weaknesses, and the truth that would definitively explain the causes of the strange events at Lake Rupkund has yet to be uncovered. All these hypotheses, whether related to natural phenomena, historical events, or religious rites, remain part of a complex puzzle that continues to intrigue scholars and enthusiasts of ancient mysteries, raising new questions and prompting further research. This hypothesis helps to better understand why so few personal belongings were found at the scene of the tragedy. It is possible that the people involved in this zone had prepared for their final journey in advance, leaving behind their material valuables, precious items and possessions, perhaps believing that it would ultimately end in death. Such an approach may stem from the belief that, at the end of their lives, they would no longer need material things and would prefer to leave everything that could connect them to the past behind in order to make the final act simpler or more symbolic. Evidence supporting this version includes the fact that many tragic events, especially those involving travel to dangerous or unexplored areas, are often accompanied by such practices. People leave some of their belongings so as not to burden themselves with their preservation or transportation at the end of their journey. Another theory, sometimes considered by researchers, involves the possibility of water poisoning. For example, contaminated water might have entered the area due to bacterial contamination, causing severe illnesses such as cholera, or from toxic algae which produce so-called harmful algal blooms. History knows cases where mass water poisoning led to epidemics that claimed many lives. These illnesses could have caused rapid and widespread death, particularly among travelers exhausted from long and arduous journeys, who are more susceptible to weakened immunity and quick illness upon contact with contaminated water. If, at that moment, the travelers drank water from Lake Rebank, microorganisms or toxic substances could have caused their sudden deaths without visible injuries or signs of violence. Either by chance or due to a tragic accident, they might have vanished as if in an instant, leaving behind only their bodies immersed in water. However, modern scientific studies of the water from this lake have not detected toxins or pathogenic microorganisms, which significantly complicates the verification of this theory. Additionally, there are serious contradictions with historical facts, since if the cause of death was water poisoning, one would expect to find certain symptoms in the victims that would remain observable. Some researchers hypothesize that over time, the lake may have been filled with avalanche deposits flowing down from higher mountain areas, which could have carried remains or traces of the victims into the water. This scenario faces serious doubts, as the probability that the bodies of the deceased ended up precisely in these locations due to avalanche shifts is quite low. Moreover, the remains of most of the discovered skeletons remain virtually undamaged, indicating they could not have been destroyed by powerful avalanches or large-scale landslides. The mechanism of an avalanche or a fall of giant snow masses, which could have destructively affected the bodies and mixed them with mud or stones, does not fully correspond to the state of the findings, thus relegating this hypothesis to a less plausible category. These factors lead to the conclusion that the theory of avalanches and landslides, although seemingly attractive with its intriguing nature, does not entirely explain the full picture of what happened. Instead, it raises additional questions and doubts, only increasing the mystery of the site located near Lake Rookfund. Most contemporary researchers agree that the truth about the tragedy that occurred is most likely a combination of several elements. It is probable that this place witnessed numerous different events and incidents over the centuries. Over a long period, it became the scene of various tragedies, including strange and sometimes horrific natural phenomena. Destructive storms, unexpected cold spells, avalanches, as well as ritual sacrifices, and possibly the disappearance of entire groups of ancient explorers who once dared to challenge the harsh nature and their fate. This variety of scenarios and events helps to better understand why these mountains and this lake have experienced such diverse tragedies and losses. It is likely that natural disasters, human actions, and mystical or inexplicable circumstances combined here, forever shrouding this place in an aura of mystery. This heterogeneous set of stories and legends creates a complex mosaic that explains both the origin and fate of the victims, as well as the difficult riddle of their sudden and often mysterious deaths. Today, Lake Rookfund faces new threats that are radically different from those it endured in the distant past. After years of neglect and isolation, maintained for centuries, modern human activity has begun to significantly impact this unique natural site. One of the most serious issues now is tourism. As this activity surges again, it attracts more and more travelers, undoubtedly benefiting the development of local regions. Although many visitors treat the circumstances of this place with respect, reverence, and awe, the growing flow of tourists inevitably leads to the destruction of trails and the ecological exhaustion of the lake's fragile ecosystem. Increasing traces of human activity appear. Paths are eroded, vegetation along the sides disappears, and nature itself is losing its pristine state. Moreover, there is sometimes an unpleasant practice where certain travelers take remains or parts of them as souvenirs, causing even greater damage to this unique site. Such seemingly insignificant act at first glance disrupts the balance and disturbs the tranquility of this historical and natural monument, casting a shadow over the memory of the tragic events associated with this place. These facts and circumstances inflict irreparable and, without exaggeration, catastrophic damage to the priceless archaeological finds stored deep within the lake, as well as permanently destroying the unique evidence of ancient human life that was there long ago. Over time, it became clear that vandalism, as one of the harmful forms of human carelessness and irresponsible attitude toward cultural heritage, is turning into a serious and increasingly pressing problem. Visitors to this mysterious place often illegally move or damage the discovered bones, and sometimes deliberately destroy them, which can lead to the irreplaceable loss of valuable genetic data, as well as the disappearance of the context, without which it is impossible to fully understand the history and unique characteristics of this archaeological layer that is important for the scientific community and the history of humanity as a whole. Such vandalism hinders scientists from conducting thorough research and complicates the reconstruction of the past, which could shed light on mysterious events associated with this site. One of the significant threats to the preservation of archaeological finds is climate change. Rising temperatures in the Himalayan region, where the lake is located, accelerate glacier melting, causing the ice cover around this body of water to begin disappearing, which for centuries has served as a natural safeguard for the discoveries located beneath the surface. Each year, as the ice recedes into the sources of melting, new human remains previously hidden under thick layers of ice are revealed. Overall, this appears to be a double-edged phenomenon. On one hand, it presents scientists with a unique opportunity to expand their knowledge by discovering new artifacts previously inaccessible for research. On the other hand, each such case increases the risk of damaging or completely destroying these remains, as without the ice baohu, they are exposed to the effects of time and natural elements, destructive to ancient bones and artifacts. The lack of constant protection in the form of ice makes these remains extremely vulnerable. Winds, rains, temperature fluctuations, and other natural factors can quickly destroy the fragile structure of bones and elements of the ancient environment. As a result, scientific research faces the threat of losing the greatest historical evidence of the past, since many of these artifacts could be destroyed or disappear before a comprehensive study is conducted, and important details are properly documented. This creates serious ethical dilemmas concerning the treatment of human remains that belong to real people, those who once lived, loved, suffered, and passed away centuries, often thousands of years ago. Researchers investigating this site, as well as those responsible for its preservation and conservation, are increasingly questioning: how appropriate is it to intervene and handle these human remains? Is it necessary to disturb their resting place and the delicate boundaries in which they still hold their historical significance and mystical power? After all, these remains are not just bones and fragments of the past, but testimonies of specific individuals' destinies, and every touch could potentially impact the memory of those who left them there centuries ago. Therefore, finding the right and prudent balance between scientific interest, the need to preserve historical artifacts, and respect for the deceased's memory becomes the foremost ethical aspect in working at this complex and multifaceted site. In light of the aforementioned issues, scientists, conservation specialists, and local authorities increasingly emphasize the need for active and coordinated measures to protect this unique location. They see an urgent need to establish and strictly enforce rules, regulations, and programs for the preservation of Lake Rubkund, as well as to develop monitoring and control systems to oversee the archaeological layer and the surrounding environment. International cooperation, bringing together the efforts of scientists, archaeologists, ecologists, and government representatives, is recognized as one of the most effective ways to ensure the site's preservation for future generations. Such a joint approach should include not only the development of long-term strategies for protection, but also active public education, because the preservation of the unique history contained in the heart of the Himalayas, beneath the waters of this mysterious lake, relies on the awareness and responsibility of each individual. Protecting Lake Rupkund is not just about saving bones or uncovering ancient secrets. It is a vital mission related to safeguarding a site of priceless historical and cultural significance for all humanity. Respect for the memory of those who were here and those who left their mark on history must come first. Despite ongoing efforts to conserve and thoroughly study this enigmatic corner of the Earth, many questions related to its mysteries remain unanswered. One of the most intriguing and least studied challenges is the attempt to understand why people from various parts of the world and different eras sought out this hard-to-reach location in the Himalayas. To date, scientists have yet to provide a definitive explanation as to what attracted travelers from Europe, the Mediterranean region, Southeast Asia, and India to these harsh and remote regions, where the climate and natural conditions seemed awe-inspiring. Some specialists suggest that Lake Rupkund may have held deep spiritual or cultural significance that we have not yet fully understood, indicating that in the past it possessed a special power and sacred content. There have also been theories proposing that it was considered a holy site not only as a spiritual center but also as a place of healing. In these cases, it was perceived as such by certain peoples or individual travelers who sought cures for illnesses there, as if relying on ancient rituals or mystical practices. Perhaps it was precisely because many of these people were already suffering from severe ailments that harsh environmental conditions and unpredictable natural phenomena became deadly threats to them, and their deaths could have occurred in these remote mountains, perhaps inadvertently caused by natural disasters or their own weakening. These mystical hypotheses only deepen the intrigue surrounding the lake, its magical power, and the specific reason why so many travelers from different eras and countries came here despite the dangers and hardships of the journey. Overall, the question of what exactly attracted people to this remote location remains one of the most fascinating and unresolved chapters in the history of this unique region. In light of recent climate changes caused by global ecological processes, there is a noticeable melting of glaciers and ice masses around Rupkund. Scientists anticipate that with rising temperatures and the gradual disappearance of the ice shell surrounding this unique site, new opportunities will open for discovering ancient remains and artifacts. These discoveries could help shed light on the history of the peoples who inhabited these lands in distant eras. In hopes of gaining a more accurate understanding of the past, researchers are actively applying modern technologies that have made significant advances over the last few decades. Among these, advanced methods of genetic analysis stand out, such as high-precision DNA testing, which allows determination of the origins of ancient inhabitants, their family connections, and even possible migration routes. Chemical analysis is also widely used to identify the dietary patterns of ancient people or their known geographical areas of residence based on materials and food residues. Additionally, modern ground-penetrating radar is employed to uncover archaeological finds hidden beneath the soil layer, and sometimes even to trace the structure of ancient settlements concealed from view. These technological methods give scientists the opportunity for a deeper understanding of who these people were, how they came to this place, and why they arrived here. There are also hypotheses suggesting that some travelers who left traces in this area might not have been mere wanderers, but were heading here with specific purposes, undertaking pilgrimages or fulfilling special missions. At the same time, researchers acknowledge that some people may have gotten lost, accidentally ending up in these mountains. Or perhaps this location once held significant cultural or religious importance for local peoples, which has been forgotten or lost over time. It is quite fascinating that around the Rubkunt mystery, numerous hypotheses and theories have emerged, combining mysticism with scientific investigation. Among them are suppositions about the appearance of unusual light phenomena or unidentified flying objects in the sky over the Himalayas. Some claim that these glowing lights and mysterious objects could have extraterrestrial origins or be the result of paranormal phenomena related to the border between worlds. However, the scientific community currently lacks sufficient evidence to support such claims, and these ideas remain hypotheses that evoke curiosity and imagination. Equally intriguing, though unconfirmed by scientists, is the hypothesis of ancient trade routes connecting distant civilizations. Territories now forgotten, or long-lost knowledge of intercontinental travel. Some believe that reports, trade caravans or expeditions may have reached here, leaving traces hidden deep within history. Despite the absence of concrete proof, these ideas inspire many researchers and writers, prompting reflection on the profound secrets surrounding Rubkunt. The mystery of this place, despite numerous attempts to solve it, remains enigmatic and continues to attract those seeking the truth within the depths of history and nature. Currently, numerous teams of scientists, researchers, and specialists from various countries are working at the site, united in their goal to create a complete and reliable picture of the lake's past. They carefully document every find, creating digital maps to store information about bones, ceramics, tools, and other artifacts that reveal the history of this unique region. Special attention is given not only to understanding the past, but also to preserving the ecological balance of this crystal-clear body of water. During their work, scientists show great interest in the traditions and oral legends of local residents, who for centuries have preserved memories of legends and beliefs associated with the lake. They realize that these stories may contain keys to solving the mystery, as folk legends often transmit knowledge and information that cannot be found in written sources. Modern researchers and local residents understand the importance of respectful treatment of this natural and cultural heritage. Today, the inhabitants of nearby villages and settlements have complex, sometimes contradictory feelings about Lake Rubkunt. On one hand, it is a sacred place for them, connected to ancient legends and traditions, evoking special reverence and awe. On the other hand, access to the site opens new opportunities for tourism development, which can bring significant income to the region's economy and contribute to infrastructure growth. At the same time, local residents are divided in opinion, believing that the influx of tourists and the careless attitude of some travelers could disturb the harmony and integrity of this unique object. They fear that adventure seekers might take bones as souvenirs or cause irreversible harm to nature and historical monuments, without considering the value and fragility of this heritage. Elders and wise men often remind the younger generation of the immense importance of preserving and respecting the sacred site. Family traditions, oral legends, and spiritual values help maintain this connection. Despite the unpredictability and challenges of the modern world, Rubkunt continues to reveal its secrets, attracting more and more researchers inspired by the desire to understand the unknown. Each new study and technological advancement create hope that, ultimately, all the mysteries of this place will be illuminated. It becomes clear why people, even separated by geographical distances, time and cultures, feel a close spiritual bond with this mystical and unique corner of the planet. Many travelers, past and present, have visited this secluded Himalayan lake repeatedly to uncover its secrets. But each time they faced a sad fate or an uncertain outcome. Imagine vast, desolate plains stretching to the horizon beneath a cloudless, boundless sky, lifeless and silent. The dry, seemingly barren plains of southern Peru might initially appear to be a completely lifeless expanse, lacking signs of life and distinguishable horizons. Humanity's history is filled with numerous mysteries and enigmas that have fascinated thinkers, archaeologists, and curious travelers for centuries. Among them, particularly notable are the incredibly large and astonishing geoglyphs hidden beneath the layer of lifeless desert. At first glance, these sun-baked sands seem empty and ordinary. Kilometers of scorched earth, scattered stone debris, and barren plains. However, viewing these lands from a bird's-eye perspective reveals something extraordinary and truly breathtaking. The focus falls on enormous geoglyphs, carefully carved images on the ground depicting animals, birds, spiders, monkeys, and mysterious humanoid figures. These precisely cut lines in the earth are true works of ancient artistry, created thousands of years ago. Their true shapes and meanings become fully clear only when viewed from above, only from the air or sky, when the full scale and complexity of these images can be appreciated. Historians and archaeologists first discovered these mysterious lines just under a century ago, and since then, they remain one of the most intriguing unsolved secrets of ancient civilizations. These geoglyphs cover a vast area, spanning several hundred square kilometers, and create impressive patterns that combine complex geometric shapes, animal figures, and images of humanoid beings. All of this seems to serve as a silent testament to the craftsmanship and spiritual beliefs of ancient peoples who apparently left these mysterious markings in the sands for future generations to ponder. Who created them, and why were these gigantic drawings necessary? Why is it that only from above, and not from the ground, can one fully appreciate their beauty and meaning? It is possible that these images had ritual functions connected to ceremonies and beliefs of the ancients, or they may have served more practical purposes. For example, acting as astronomical markers or essential elements of agricultural culture. Furthermore, some figures look so strange and unusual that many researchers believe they come from another world, captivating the minds of both scientists and science fiction enthusiasts. This fascinating discussion about these legendary lines sparks many questions. How and why were they created? What role did they play in the lives of the ancient creators? And what secrets does their symbolism hide? In our journey through the mysteries of these lines, we will attempt to answer the most important and provocative questions, revealing existing theories and discoveries related to this ancient mystical structure. It is possible that motives or methods were employed by long-extinct civilizations that we have yet to fully understand. Immersed in the atmosphere of ancient times, we embark on an extraordinary journey into the world of the enigmas left behind by the mysterious civilization of the Nazca, a people who lived on the arid coastal plains of southern Peru about 2,000 years ago. These incredible people were not conquerors or kings like many other ancient peoples. They did not build tall palaces, grand pyramids, or majestic temples. Yet their achievements were no less significant and mysterious, as their legacy continues to captivate the imagination today. The Nazca civilization flourished roughly from the 1st century BCE and lasted about 80 centuries. These centuries of continuous existence in harsh, lifeless desert expanses were not easy. They required not only resilience and endurance, but also the ability to find new ways to survive in the arid, barren environment. Their secret lay in the use of innovative methods that enabled them to overcome natural difficulties and succeed. One of their most astonishing achievements was the creation of an underground water supply system, known as the Puquios. This system consisted of a complex network of spiral wells, unique in design, capable of extracting and transporting limited groundwater supplies to agricultural lands located at a considerable distance from water sources. The branching underground channels, carefully designed and manually constructed, ensured a continuous flow of water to the fields, enabling the cultivation of crops in one of the most arid and lifeless regions on the planet. This technological breakthrough, a testament to the high level of engineering and craftsmanship, played a vital role in the survival and prosperity of this people. Additionally, a valuable testament to the spiritual life and skills of the Nazca people are their delicate and exquisite ceramics, rich fabrics and jewelry, ornaments crafted with remarkable precision and mastery. However, what most amazed observers were their other creations: enormous drawings carved directly into the sandy surfaces, hidden for centuries beneath layers of sand and dust. These images, unlike any others, became a symbol of their culture and sparked relentless curiosity among researchers. They are known as the Nazca lines, incredibly complex and large-scale geoglyphs, embodying the craftsmanship and legendary skills of ancient artists and engineers. Thus began the story of an odyssey into the mysteries of these lines, their enigmatic symbols, and the possible purposes for which they were created. Although millions of questions remain unanswered, each new fact and every discovery brings us closer to understanding the greatness of the Nazca people and the hidden messages buried in the sands. These mysterious geoglyphs are astonishing images carved into the Earth's surface, depicting a variety of animals, from brightly colored hummingbirds, known for their grace and speed, to monkeys, showing adaptability to challenging environmental conditions, and mysterious spiders, symbols of many ancient cultures. In addition to these living creatures, the drawings also feature complex geometric figures, patterns and shapes, remarkable for their precision and thoughtfulness. By creating such large and vibrant images, the ancient Nazca people demonstrated not only their artistic talent, but also the highest level of craftsmanship, evidence of a deep knowledge of spatial planning and the ability to realize designs that exceeded simple manual labor. It is especially significant that many of these images can only be appreciated from a height, meaning their creators possessed the ability to plan their works in such a way that they would be visible from above, possibly using special landmarks or tools. This approach indicates a high level of engineering and artistic skill, as well as the foresight and meticulous preparation, guiding the creation of their monumental works. Unlike other well-known ancient civilizations such as the Egyptians, Mayans, or Sumerians, the culture of the Nazca people has left virtually no written records. As a result, archaeologists face significant challenges in attempting to reconstruct their way of thinking, religious beliefs, or historical motives embedded in these giant figures. Almost all information about them and the reasons behind creating these unique images is based on numerous archaeological studies, excavations, and finds discovered within their territory. These discoveries, ranging from tools and pottery to fragments of structures and remnants of dwellings, help specialists form a comprehensive picture of their ancient culture and way of life. Modern scholars have concluded that the Nazca people sought, and most likely found, ways to survive in the harsh desert environment, made possible through their ingenuity, a rich arsenal of knowledge, and the ability to utilize natural resources. They developed irrigation methods, improved water supply systems, and created artificial channels, which helped them sustain life and preserve soil fertility. However, despite numerous successes and advances in researching their heritage, many aspects of this ancient culture remain a mystery. We know that they conducted ceremonial rituals, seemingly related to fertility worship, rain, or natural cycles. But questions about how exactly they perceived the surrounding world, what motivated them to create such large-scale figures, and what their spiritual or worldview significance was, remain unanswered. The creation of these large lines and drawings was undoubtedly part of their religious or ritual practices, possibly connected to worshipping gods or praying for prosperity. To fully understand the Nazca culture, thorough and comprehensive study of their legacy is necessary, examining everything that has survived from their civilization. Complex aqueducts used for irrigation and supporting agriculture, and the mysterious lines that still hold their symbolic meaning today, attracting thousands of researchers and tourists eager to unlock their secrets. These monuments continue to be part of the rich heritage of the Nazca people, serving as symbols of their spiritual world and technical mastery. Only after a full century, from the early 20th century onward, has modern society been able to truly appreciate the scale and uniqueness of these astonishing creations of the ancient inhabitants of the Nazca Desert. Until the 19th century, and especially until the 1920s, these giant geoglyphs remained almost unnoticed, hidden beneath layers of sand and clay, eluding the attention of most travelers and researchers. The landscapes of southern Peru, where these enigmatic drawings are located, conceal many secrets that have remained hidden for centuries beneath the silent desert's cover. From the ground, these strange patterns appear as random lines, shallow trenches carved by the wind or human hands, and nothing hints at their true significance. Local residents and numerous travelers pass by them, often unaware that they were actual works of art and science, created with the utmost precision. However, everything changed dramatically with the advent of aviation, when, at the end of the 20th century, in the 1920s and 1930s, commercial pilots began flying over southern Peru. From their high vantage point, they saw for the first time the astonishing images hidden beneath the layer of sand and recorded them in their diaries and photographs. Thanks to their altitude and modern observation tools, these pilots discovered that the desert surface was dotted with perfectly defined figures and highly accurate shapes that stood out clearly against the surrounding environment. They remembered images of various animals, such as birds, seabirds sitting on branches, insects, and geometric patterns composed of lines and contours, all of which conveyed a sense of meticulous planning and skillful execution. Imagine how these pilots, gazing down at the Earth from their small airplanes, realized they were observing an entire universe of secret messages concealed within these giant drawings, created with a deliberately conceived purpose. In such moments, they were filled with a sense of mystery, feeling they were dealing with something far more significant than mere natural formations. Their bird's-eye view downward revealed to them that these images could only have been created through conscious human intent. The drawings could not have been mere accidents, with deliberate design meant to be visible only from great heights. These discoveries sparked genuine excitement, prompting scientists and researchers to pay closer attention to this phenomenon. The first to notice and question the origin of these lines and figures was an American researcher specializing in history and culture, known as Paul Kosuk. In the 1930s, he undertook an expedition to the site of the Nazca drawings to study the ancient irrigation system created by the region's early inhabitants, and to assess the scale and uniqueness of these ancient works for the first time. One day, on the shortest day of the winter solstice, when the sun dips below the horizon, an inquisitive observer standing atop a hill witnessed a remarkable phenomenon. He saw how one of the Nazca geoglyphs' lines literally aligned with the line of the setting sun on the horizon. This discovery profoundly impressed him and sparked thoughts that these mysterious drawings, made by an ancient people, might possess an astronomical significance. Subsequently, he decided to name Nazca the greatest book on astronomy that ever existed in the world, thereby confirming the importance and uniqueness of this complex of lines and figures. The work of researchers and scientists studying these mysterious geoglyphs attracted widespread public attention and did not go unnoticed by curious experts from around the globe, eager to solve the mystery. However, it was one of the staff members, an assistant who turned out to be a German mathematician and archaeologist named Maria Rahi, who chose to dedicate her life to uncovering this great archaeological and astronomical secret. Energetic, persistent, and obsessed with her task, Maria moved to Peru to spend countless years in careful research, systematic measurement, and documentation of every fragment found, every geoglyph, and each image. Her simplest tools were rulers, ladders, and basic geodetic instruments, allowing her to record the position and dimensions of the lines with maximum precision. Steadfast in her work, she studied the layout of the lines, their geometric structure, and astronomical alignments, bringing all data into a unified system. During her activities, Maria developed the hypothesis that the Nazca lines served not as random drawings, but as a vast astronomical calendar. These colossal figures could function as markers for key solar and lunar events, which were crucial for agricultural cycles, rituals, and ceremonies related to natural phenomena. Her diligence attracted the attention of not only scientists, but also the general public, and through years of effort, she succeeded in securing the protection of the Nazca lines from destruction. Now they were under state protection. This, in turn, sparked immense interest among archaeologists and also drew tourists from all over the world, eager to see these extraordinary symbols with their own eyes. Nevertheless, despite the progress made, many questions remained unanswered. Why exactly these figures, enormous representations of a monkey, a spider, a bird, were beautifully and mysteriously placed on the surface of the earth? And how could ancient Nazca artists create such impressive images, recognizable only from above, and at the same time lacked the means to observe them from above, since airplanes, drones, or satellites appeared much later? How could the human hand, without modern technological tools, produce such complex and precise drawings? One of the possible answers to this question is that the Nazca people used a very simple yet highly effective technique. In the Nazca Desert lies a unique layer, formed by a special geological composition, unique in its properties. It consists of dark, oxidized stones covering a lighter, sandy ground. When the surface of this layer is carefully removed, a bright light and flat land emerges before the observer, creating sharp contrasts and perfectly clear boundaries visible from above. This natural technique has essentially become an ingenious application of natural materials and properties. In the process of creating the lines and figures, no paints or pigments were used. Everything was done through simple yet highly precise and careful excavations and the utilization of the natural coloration of the surface. However, despite its apparent simplicity, these excavations and cuts could fully explain the scale and complexity of the entire complex. The Nazca lines are astonishingly fine, very precise, and long, sometimes reaching 9 kilometers. Lines that stretch perfectly straight and flawlessly, as if created by a master's hand. Within these lines, images of various animals and birds, such as hummingbirds, spiders, monkeys, and condors, are placed, each carefully crafted, proportionate, and symmetrical. Some of these lines reach lengths of 9 kilometers, and one of the structures, impressive in its scale, is a line approximately 5 kilometers long, executed with absolute straightness, which presents incredible difficulty even with modern technology. And the question arises, how could the ancient inhabitants of Nazca create such grand and precise drawings without methods that would allow them to see the result from above, as modern technology permits? Modern scientists, aiming to shed light on the mysteries of ancient civilizations, employ experimental archaeology by testing hypotheses and reproducing ancient technologies and techniques believed to have been available to the creators of the famous geoglyphs on the Nazca Plateau. Much of their research is based on trying to understand how these large figures could have been made and what tools and knowledge were used in their creation. One of the most exciting and impressive experiments was conducted by an investigator named Jonico, who decided to recreate one of the Nazca images to understand the practical aspects of the process. He carefully reproduced the chosen figure on a smaller scale to comprehend how these famous patterns were made. For this, he used only the simplest geodetic and measuring tools, such as long sticks tied with ropes, along with basic measurement methods available to ancient craftsmen. As a result, he demonstrated that even with simple devices, it was possible to achieve accurate shapes and lines by excavating or leveling the ground at strictly defined angles and alignments. However, since working on each drawing required precision and meticulousness, Jonikal's experiments once again showed how complex and painstaking this task was. Creating even small samples required meticulous planning, constant supervision of every stage, and ongoing comparison and verification. Imagine how this process would look on a scale covering hundreds of meters of desert surface, when a team of workers, moving with the help of ropes, sticks, and visual landmarks, coordinated their actions without modern communication tools such as radios or electronic aerial photography. Such a scale of work truly seems incredible and astonishing. Drawing perfectly symmetrical lines on the ground, aligning boundaries so that they precisely match and create a harmonious picture. This is an almost impossible task, especially without modern, precise instruments. And what is especially remarkable, unlike modern experiments, the ancient Nazca artists likely left no noticeable traces of errors or corrections related to drawing mistakes. Their geoglyphs, created with incredible precision, completely preserve their original beauty and harmony, which amazes researchers and scientists. This high level of accuracy and neatness raises questions about the methods used by ancient creators. Perhaps they employed special vantage points, hills, towers, or other elevations from which they could observe their work from afar and orient themselves precisely. Maybe they also had primitive measurement systems allowing them to make accurate adjustments, or they resorted to astronomical observations, using the positions of stars and solar landmarks to determine lines and points. All of this remains a subject of debate and unexplained mysteries. Since the early 20th century, after the discovery and study of the Nazca lines, analysts have put forward many hypotheses, each attempting to explain the purpose of these images. It has become particularly evident that the scale and precision of these geoglyphs require serious justification, indicating that the ancient Nazca inhabitants had clear and specific goals related to creating such giant and complex figures. Over many years, archaeologists and historians have focused on researching and analyzing three main theories: astronomical purpose, religious rituals, and symbolic communication. Among them, one of the earliest and most well-known is the theory proposed by a German archaeologist, a specialist in mathematics and the study of ancient lines named Maria Reich. She dedicated her life to exploring and mapping the Nazca lines, believing that these enormous figures primarily served as astronomical calendars or landmarks for determining the timing of events. As a result of her work, it was established that certain lines and figures are closely connected with celestial phenomena, such as the sunrise or sunset during solstices and equinoxes. For example, several elongated straight lines precisely coincided with the lines of sunrise at special astronomical moments, indicating that their creators used these figures as a calendar or reference points for conducting agricultural and seasonal rituals. This idea is supported by the fact that the ancient peoples who created these geoglyphs knew exactly when significant astronomical events occurred on Earth and could plan their work and religious ceremonies accordingly. The in-depth and comprehensive analysis carried out by renowned researcher Maria Reich significantly expanded our understanding of the numerous lines left by the mysterious Nazca civilization and revealed their important role within the context of the ancient cultures that inhabited this area. Precise measurements and detailed studies conducted by Reich continue to serve as valuable sources of information for archaeologists and astronomers today. enabling new insights into the origin and purpose of these enigmatic geoglyphs. However, despite compelling evidence and arguments supporting the astronomical theory, many scientists note that it still cannot fully explain the diversity and complexity of animal and plant figures that are clearly visible among the lines. These elegant and harmonious forms, such as the hummingbird, spider, monkey, and condor, carry not only artistic intent but also hold specific symbolism, raising questions about their true nature and purpose. Unlike direct references to celestial bodies or astronomical events, these figures lack clear correspondences with known celestial objects or phenomena, which in some way casts doubt on a single correct interpretation of their function. This circumstance has led some scholars to hypothesize that the Nazca lines could serve a broader, sacred or religious, meaning. They might not merely have been markers for observing the stars, but could also serve as symbolic signs intended for rituals and ceremonies associated with worship of natural forces, especially water and fertility. It is important to note that in the arid and resource-scarce region of southern Peru, water was always a source of passionate concern and held special sacred significance, justifying the hypothesis of a ritual function of the lines. For this reason, the Nazca people, who possessed a rich and profound spiritual tradition, are believed to have thought that creating these giant symbolic figures held magical significance. It could attract rain, support agriculture, or serve as some sort of connecting thread with the gods and spirits who protected their people. An important fact supporting this view is that many geoglyphs are positioned in such a way that they point directly to mountain water sources, which served not only as vital water supplies, but also as sacred sites for conducting various rituals and ceremonial activities related to water worship. Extensive field research carried out by archaeologist and cultural traditions expert Johann Reinhardt has significantly reinforced this interpretation. His expeditions and studies in the region helped uncover numerous traces of ancient rituals associated specifically with water. These included symbolic structures, stone altars, and other archaeological finds that testify to religious activity. Analysis of local traditions and legendary passed down through generations confirms that the lines and figures of Nazca could indeed have played a role not only as artistic decorations, but also as repositories of sacred ideas. At the same time, there exists a broader theory suggesting that the Nazca lines were not only ritualistic or magical symbols, but also served as a kind of symbolic message or a means of communication with higher powers and ancestral spirits. According to this hypothesis, the gigantic size and scale of the geoglyphs, impossible to see in their entirety from the ground, as they can only be fully appreciated from above, were deliberately created to be visible only to gods and superhuman beings. It is believed that these massive images functioned as grand spiritual sacrifices or messages addressed to deities thought to dwell in the heavens or on sacred mountain ranges nearby. This approach suggests that the Nazca people created these grand representations not merely for admiration or decoration, but to establish a special connection with cosmic or spiritual forces, hoping to gain their favor and support. An intriguing and captivating idea that links archaeological findings with ancient beliefs is that these lines might have been created for interaction with the hereafter or higher powers, envisioned at the time as spirits residing in the sky or in particular sacred sites. However, although such hypotheses evoke genuine interest and add a mystical aura around these enigmatic lines, skepticism remains within the scientific community. There is very little evidence to substantiate any of the above claims, and each of the proposed theories remains more of a hypothesis than a verified fact. After many years of research and attempts to solve the mystery of the lines, archaeological and historical data have proven insufficient for a definitive answer. Especially challenging is determining the exact motivation and purpose behind the creation of these giant structures, as no written records from Nazca culture survive to shed light on their intention. This significantly complicates the task and makes it impossible to definitively distinguish the meanings and purposes for which these majestic figures were created. Modern archaeological methods, such as ground-penetrating radar, high-precision satellite imaging, digital image analysis technologies, and others, have greatly expanded our ability to study the location and structure of the lines. Thanks to these techniques, we can gain a more comprehensive understanding of how and with what tools these mysterious geoglyphs were created. Nevertheless, even with modern technology, it remains impossible to definitively decipher their true purpose. This mystery remains unresolved, generating many questions and sometimes giving rise to new hypotheses. It is important to consider that the Nazca culture persisted for a considerable period, centuries, and it is quite likely that over time the meaning of the lines could have changed due to cultural transformations, religious beliefs, and shifts in the people's way of life. Thus, the creation and use of these large-scale geoglyphs likely carried a deep and multifaceted significance that could have evolved throughout the history of this civilization. For a long time, scientists and researchers studying ancient civilizations have posed the same question. How were the numerous lines and geoglyphs on the Nazca Plateau in Peru used? The answer to this question has been complicated by the fact that for many decades, numerous theories and hypotheses have existed, each offering its own explanation for this phenomenon. Some believe that these mysterious markings served as astronomical markers intended to help ancient observers identify important celestial events or seasonal cycles. Others suggested that the Nazca lines were ceremonial pathways or connected to religious rituals and cults. Still, others interpreted them as symbolic languages or means of communication, through which ancient peoples conveyed important information to one another. Regarding modern scientists, most tend to think that these various purposes are not mutually exclusive and could have coexisted, fulfilling multiple functions simultaneously. In this case, the lines and figures carved into the sand could have served as astronomical guides, and at the same time acted as intermediaries in ritual ceremonies or acts of symbolic communication. However, despite all the research conducted and hypotheses proposed, a final, comprehensive explanation of the purpose of the Nazca lines remains unattainable. This continues to spark scientific debate and prompts new investigations in hopes of uncovering the true nature of this phenomenon. To this day, scientists cannot provide a definitive answer regarding the functions of the Nazca lines. The astronomical hypotheses proposed by scientist Maria Reiche, linking the figures to possible calendar or astrological calculations, the ceremonial interpretation suggested by archaeologist Johann Reinhardt, as well as broader theories viewing the geoglyphs as a means of spiritual or symbolic communication. All these approaches represent important milestones in the quest to uncover their mystery. However, despite a wealth of data and theoretical assumptions, none of the presented hypotheses has provided a fully comprehensive explanation. Over the past decades, the mystery of the Nazca lines has remained unsolved, inspiring patient curiosity and a persistent desire to understand what their creators truly intended. This has undoubtedly stimulated the development of new research methods and approaches, which in turn have led to significant breakthroughs in archaeological investigations. One of the most notable and impressive events in modern science was the adoption and active use of advanced technologies that have allowed new chapters to be opened in the history of studying this enigmatic area. In recent years, archaeological expeditions have moved away from outdated ground-based methods such as visual surveys or selective excavations, instead employing modern devices and equipment capable of covering vast areas and detecting the tiniest details. In particular, one of the key achievements has been the use of quadcopters and unmanned aerial vehicles equipped with high-resolution cameras and sensors, as well as satellite imaging methods utilizing new image processing technologies. These innovations have significantly expanded scientists' capabilities, allowing for detailed examination of the surface of the Nazca Plateau, something previously inaccessible through traditional aerial photography. They have opened new horizons in research, revealing the finest contours and forms that long remained hidden beneath the sand or obscured by natural factors. Thanks to the use of such modern techniques, several years ago, a team of scientists from Yamagata University in Japan made a remarkable discovery. In 2021, they conducted large-scale investigations using advanced high-resolution satellite imagery and drones capable of capturing aerial photographs from different angles and under various lighting conditions. The result was the identification of over 140 previously unknown geoglyphs, causing a sensation in the scientific community and sparking widespread public interest worldwide. Among the discovered images, scientists noted figures depicting animals, llamas, birds, snakes, fish, as well as humanoid entities, astonishing for their level of detail and diversity. Part 45 of 49. The figure of a person, representing a complex ceremonial image, executed in a distinctive style that significantly differed from all previously known figures, stood out particularly. These findings greatly expanded our understanding of the Nazca geoglyphs. They served as a reminder that beneath the sandy surface, hundreds or even thousands of unique figures, left by ancient artisans whose knowledge and skills are still in need of thorough study, may be hidden. The process of discovering and documenting new images was quite complex and required the use of the most advanced analytical tools. Initially, scientists employed high-resolution satellite imagery to detect even the slightest variations in relief and surface color, which could indicate the presence of new figures. Following this, unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, were deployed, ascending into the air to capture large, detailed images from various angles. These real-time frames underwent meticulous analysis with specially developed computer software. During data processing, researchers identified barely visible shapes and details, imperceptible to the naked eye, allowing them to find new figures and lines fairly regularly. Thus, the use of cutting-edge technology significantly expanded research capabilities and made previously impossible discoveries achievable. This invisible yet vast expansion of archaeological knowledge demonstrates how far current methods have advanced and how they assist in solving the most complex mysteries left by our ancestors, who bequeathed this incredible and mysterious heritage to generations. These new and remarkable discoveries undoubtedly sparked a wave of new questions and posed a range of challenging tasks for scientists and experts. The geoglyphs, which had remained almost unnoticed and hidden beneath layers of sand and time for centuries, suddenly faced the threat of disappearance and destruction under the influence of numerous environmental factors. These factors include constant erosion, which wears down and washes away parts of the images due to wind and rain, human activities such as agriculture, construction, or careless handling of monuments, as well as global climate change, all of which could erase these unique images of ancient peoples from the face of the earth forever. Researchers and international organizations responsible for cultural heritage conservation swiftly began taking various measures to halt this relentless process of destruction and preserve these unique artifacts. An important step in this direction was the recognition of the Nazca Lines as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, highlighting their exceptional historical and cultural value and fostering active international cooperation and joint efforts to safeguard them. Modern methods of protecting such monuments have become much more comprehensive, involving intrusive and meticulous management of tourist flows to minimize their negative impact, as well as conducting controlled archaeological excavations aimed at studying and preserving the relative integrity of the drawings. Extensive and detailed documentation also plays an important role, enabling the preservation of accurate images of the lines and geoglyphs for future generations, even if the original objects are ultimately damaged. These measures are not just designed for conservation. They are intended to ensure that the historical treasures of Nazca civilization, such unique evidence of its cultural practices and beliefs, remain accessible to successors in preserved form. The integration of modern technologies and conservation methods into existing systems has rapidly increased their effectiveness and added an extra layer of confidence in the preservation of these monuments. Nevertheless, the significance of such discoveries goes far beyond mere conservation issues. Each new finding, each new geoglyph, holds the potential to expand our understanding of ancient cultures. It is no coincidence that archaeologists and historians frequently use the discovered drawings as keys to deeper exploration and interpretation of the lifestyle, religious practices, and social structures of the Nazca civilization. Modern scholars actively compare newly discovered geoglyphs with well-known cultural symbols that have already been extensively researched within the regional context. They carefully analyze their shape, stylistic features, and placement in the endless desert to unravel hidden meanings and possible scenarios of their use. All these studies are conducted in hopes of unveiling the secrets behind these mysterious drawings and understanding their role in the lives of ancient peoples. Given the impressive complexity and precision of these images, it is not surprising that much of the scientific community and researchers strive to find answers. What exactly these figures meant, what their purpose was, and why they were created. Within this context, new hypotheses and interpretations often arise, sometimes quite unexpected and contradictory. Some scientists attempt to explain the Nazca lines as the result of remarkable technological achievements or even magical practices, while others consider them sacred symbols or ritual images. Despite the confidence most experts have that the Nazca lines were created by the ancient Nazca people for cultural or ceremonial purposes, debates regularly occur within the scientific community about their exact meaning and purpose. Among supporters of alternative theories is one of the most well-known and controversial researchers, Erich von Däniken, author of the book titled Chariots of the Gods. This book became the starting point for the development of the hypothesis that ancient authors of the Nazca lines may have possessed knowledge surpassing our current understanding and could have communicated with extraterrestrial civilizations. In his works, von Däniken suggests that many ancient artifacts, monuments, and drawn geoglyphs indicate that our planet might have served as a site for visits by alien beings in the distant past. According to his view, the complex and highly precise patterns of the Nazca lines, visible only from the air, could not have been random, but rather served as evidence of guidance or direct influence from advanced extraterrestrial cultures, capable of sending signals or even leaving their marks on the Earth's surface. This hypothesis, which gained widespread popularity in certain circles, especially attracted attention in the 1960s and 1970s, when the mysterious geoglyphs in the Nazca Plateau provoked active public interest and became the subject of numerous discussions among scientists, conspiracy theorists, and proponents of alternative history. Supporters of von Däniken's idea focus on images of some well-known Nazca figures, such as the assumed astronaut resembling a human with large eyes and a distinctive helmet, or complex symbols similar to spacecraft. These figures draw particular attention because they appear to convey messages or symbols for those capable of perceiving such images from above or in another dimension. The unique shape of this figure, with large eyes and an anthropomorphic form, has become a kind of symbol among supporters of alternative theories, suggesting the presence of extraterrestrial beings on Earth and their influence on the development of ancient civilizations. Many believe that such images and patterns in the Nazca lines were not mere coincidences, but evidence of ancient encounters with extraterrestrial visitors, their interactions, and even joint initiatives to create these intricate works of art and symbols designed to transmit vital messages from space. Some advocates of the extraterrestrial hypothesis argue that figures and geoglyphs created by the Nazca people could not have appeared without external assistance, given their incredible size and precision, which seemed impossible to achieve without modern technology. Therefore, they claim that the realization of such large and complex images required either contact with alien civilizations or some other form of extraterrestrial support that helped ancient artisans attain such perfection. However, leading archaeologists and recognized researchers emphasize that, to date, there are no convincing and reliable evidence to substantiate these bold claims of extraterrestrial involvement or contact. The scientific community points out that many ancient cultures around the world built complex and significant structures using only the tools and knowledge available to them, without modern equipment or satellite imagery. In their experiments, researchers such as professional surveyors and historians consistently demonstrate that it was quite feasible to create large-scale geoglyphs using simple measurement methods based on ancient techniques, as well as knowledge in geometry and astronomy. These studies clearly show that the creation of the Nazca lines was not the result of some mysterious hypothesis, but a plausible and logical activity carried out by human hands, relying on the knowledge and skills accumulated in antiquity. Detailed research confirms that the inhabitants of this regional culture possessed advanced mastery in geometry, astronomy, and mathematics. Through careful planning, precise measurements, and systematic work, they were able to produce complex images on the surface of the Earth, investing considerable effort and craftsmanship. Some lines and figures are related to astronomical phenomena, such as solstices or equinoxes, indicating their sacred or ritual significance, rather than the necessity of alien intervention. This approach to studying these geoglyphs highlights their importance as symbolic and astronomical markers, significant for ancient peoples. They form a complex network of connections pointing to knowledge far beyond simple art or coincidence. Regarding the figure of a human depicted in one of the findings, in a style sometimes associated with alien themes, archaeologists conducted thorough research and concluded that the image most likely represents a shaman or deity, dressed in ceremonial attire, corresponding to regional rituals and cultures. While the figure appears mysterious and evokes associations with modern notions of cosmic faces or astronauts, detailed analysis shows that it is a typical ceremonial figure symbolizing spiritual or religious characters. Such imagery fits within the context of the Nazca culture and their neighboring civilizations, where similar symbols were used in religious ceremonies and rites, helping to convey important cultural and spiritual ideas. Despite advances in modern technology such as satellite imaging, radiocarbon dating, and archaeological excavations, the exact meaning and technique behind the creation of these lines and figures remain a mystery, hidden behind the thick layers of time and desert sand. Many researchers believe that the secrets of these monuments may never be fully uncovered, as natural conditions and the enigmatic ancient wisdom embedded in these symbols might have been forever lost or left to the conscience of the earth and the passage of time. Perhaps their secrets are not meant for the modern person. They may serve as a reminder of the wisdom and knowledge of our ancestors, guarded by the very depths of history and natural landscapes. What are your thoughts on these versions? What ideas come to mind when considering such ancient mysteries? Share your insights, reflections, or impressions in the comments. We are always happy to hear your opinions. Also, stay tuned for our upcoming materials, as each new discovery or theory helps us better understand and feel the spirit of former ages.